A Canadian Navy patrol ship arrived in Havana early on Friday, shortly after the United States announced that a fast-attack submarine had docked at its Guantanamo naval base in Cuba. Both vessels followed the arrival of Russian warships on the island earlier this week. The presence of Russian, Canadian, and U.S. vessels in Cuba communist-ruled island nation just 160 kilometers, or 100 miles from Florida echoes old Cold War tensions and highlights current strained relations between Russia and Western nations over the Ukraine war. Despite this, both the U.S. and Cuba have stated that the Russian warships do not pose a threat to the region. Russia has also described the arrival of its warships in allied Cuba as routine. The Admiral Gorshkov frigate and the nuclear-powered submarine Kazan, half-submerged with its crew on deck, entered Havana harbor on Wednesday after conducting high-precision missile weapons training in the Atlantic Ocean. Canada's Margaret Brooke patrol vessel began maneuvers early on Friday to enter Havana harbor, part of what the Canadian Joint Operations Command called a port visit. In recognition of the long-standing bilateral relationship between Canada and Cuba. Hours earlier, the U.S. Southern Command said the fast-attack submarine Helena had arrived on a routine port visit to Guantanamo Bay, a U.S. naval base on the southeast tip of the island around 850 kilometers or 530 miles from Havana. The vessel's location and transit were previously planned, Southern Command said on X. A Canadian diplomat characterized the Margaret Brooke's arrival as routine and part of long-standing cooperation between our two countries, adding it was unrelated to the presence of the Russian ships. Russia and Cuba were close allies under the former Soviet Union, and tensions with Washington over communism in its backyard peaked with the Cuban Missile Crisis of 1962. Moscow, which has maintained ties with Havana, has questioned the apparent nervousness of the West over the warships this week. When asked what signal Moscow was sending, Russian Foreign Ministry spokeswoman Maria Zakharova said on Thursday the West never appeared to take notice when Russia sent signals through diplomatic channels. As soon as it comes to exercises or sea voyages, we immediately hear questions and a desire to know what these messages are about, Zakharova said. Why do only signals related only to our Army and Navy reach the West?